Hey guys, Justin again. So this is continuing with my series of movie reviews that I've been starting to do quite a lot recently. So tonight's movie that I went to go see is Elvis, starring Austin Butler and Tom Hanks. And this movie was directed by Baz Luhrmann, who's most famous for Romeo and Juliet, the 1996 version, and The Great Gatsby, the 2013 version.
And I forgot to mention Moulin Rouge.
That's interesting. He does a lot of remakes. His own renditions, I'm going to say. What's interesting about this screening of Elvis is the movie actually releases nationwide on Friday, but tonight is Tuesday night of that same theatrical release week. And they had a little special event at select AMC movie theaters where they had an advanced screening of the movie. And included with it... Here, let me prop this up somewhere. I'll turn that around in post. Included with my movie ticket, I also got this cool poster that has 3 shots of Austin Butler as Elvis himself. All right, let's get into the rest of it. So I'm going to be doing this review in 2 parts. I'm going to be doing the intro portion here inside the car, and then I'm just going to do the rest at home because it's much easier. And I live 40 minutes away from this theater. It was the only one close by that actually had this event going on. Austin Butler stars as Elvis Presley, and Tom Hanks plays Colonel Tom Parker, who was Elvis Presley's manager for his entire career. And so this movie chronicles Elvis's career from when he was performing, and also a couple of flashbacks to his youth. Beyond this point, there's going to definitely be some spoilers, so if you don't want to know anything about the movie, although it's actually happened in reality, but if you insist on going into this movie completely blind, like not knowing anything about Elvis's personal life whatsoever, then I suggest you go watch the movie first before you watch this review. Let's get into it. So I was leaving the theater and then I came across this. It's a paranormal circus type of deal. It's like literally in the mall parking lot. I literally look out the window and I'm like, what is that? Like I am very confused, but also at the same time, it's kind of funny. So I'm actually in editing right now for my Elvis review, and I thought I should bring up an interesting piece of information. So I have a bit of personal connections with Elvis Presley himself, so I'm not related to him or anything, but my grandfather, when he was actually in the Navy, he actually met him, and it's so cool because my grandpa, he really enjoyed Elvis's music, and that was passed on to my mom, and then that passed on to me. So it's kind of interesting now that I'm being able to see like this man who has been so influential in my family just be shown on screen at a movie. And I even got a picture right here. I'm just going to do the rest of this review from my bed because it's much easier. I only got little bits of information because this follows real-life events, so there's not really any easy way that I could find any sort of information regarding the plot of this movie specifically. But according to IMDb, it says, from his childhood in Tupelo, Mississippi, to his rise to stardom starting in Memphis, Tennessee, and his conquering of Las Vegas, Nevada, Elvis Presley becomes the first rock and roll star and changes the world with his music. Yeah, it's pretty fair collection of words to describe this. So this obviously included a lot of Elvis's greatest hits, and a couple of other ones that I wasn't super familiar with before I saw this movie. One thing that this movie did do was, at the very beginning of it, they had Colonel Tom Parker. They just introduced him out of nowhere and was showing him in the final moments of his life, just reflecting on everything that's happened. And it was such a trippy sequence to watch. Everything was just like flashing, going all over the place. And it was kind of hard to keep up with at some points because everything's just happening so rapidly. But then it just slows down gradually. And this movie is about 2 hours and 40 minutes. So I honestly had no idea how much time passed. For maybe a safe estimate, I'm going to say is like the first 25 minutes of this movie was just so fast, which kind of made me feel like, okay, what is going on here? But I feel like that's kind of within Baz Luhrmann's style. It will just pull you in so quickly. The movie will keep a hold on your attention, and then it'll slowly be like, okay, you know enough now, and I'll release the chains. That's the best way I could think to describe it. I gotta say, his stylized camera motions and the way that he conducts scenes where it shows like different panels of what's going on within the same scene. Zoom in, zoom out's a bunch of spins too. I think that's actually pretty cool, and it kind of enhances the story a bit. Kind of the same with the Rocket Man movie about Elton John in 2019. In a similar type of style to it. Although this movie is rated PG-13, so they really couldn't get away with any swearing within this movie. Any excessive swearing, I mean. Another interesting assessment about this movie, which also kind of blends in from Baz Luhrmann's previous works, like Romeo and Juliet and The Great Gatsby, like I mentioned before.
And Moulin Rouge, too.
They've contained little bits of modern music within it, so it speaks to a more culturally relevant place than when these stories would be taking place, at least current cultural standards. You have to have an open mind about on how to approach the life of one of the most famous musicians of the last century. Interestingly enough, Elvis's musical inspirations came from country music of the South and also in the rhythm and blues of the black population that was living within Mississippi and also Tennessee within the time that Elvis was starting to become popular. Gospel music, I almost forgot to mention that. He had such an admiration for all these different musical styles, and he just kind of took them and made them all his own. And even the genres that have come past Elvis's time have taken inspiration from the inspirations. So it's just kind of like it's like all full circle. And with Baz Luhrmann's choice of hip hop music being part of this Elvis movie in a few choice scenes, actually does help to enhance the experience, because you can definitely tell the inspirations that Elvis was having helped to inspire the music of this movie. My only issue with the movie was that it did seem a little bit too quickly paced at some points, which kind of distracted me from being super engaged with it, because I was like, okay, I've got to take in all this information before the next scene shows up. At some point, like, it did start to slow down, so I was like, okay, good. I can start to take in all this information. But I think that's supposed to kind of represent how Elvis was feeling during some of his career, when his manager just was extremely overwhelming to him and was like micromanaging almost every little single aspect of his life. So I guess you could say that the pacing definitely did represent like Elvis's feelings over his career. But other than that, I did really genuinely enjoy this movie, and if you get the chance to go see this at some point, I highly recommend it. So I think my final rating for this would probably be like a 9 out of 10. The 1 point away from 10 for this is just because of the pacing of it. Other than that, I really genuinely enjoyed this. And if you are a fan of Elvis, or are really interested in like the early history of rhythm and blues and rock music, this is definitely worth something looking into. But other than that, that's all I've got to say about this. So thank you for watching this review, and I hope to see you watching more of these types of videos sometime soon. So if you want to see more, you can subscribe to my channel, or you can follow my social media to get further updates about what I do. So yeah, thanks for watching.